Hi you guys, I figured out a way to show my face. So we're gonna go ahead and start. This is skill 11, factoring trinomials. So trinomials means three terms. Think of a tricycle means three. So it means three terms. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. So make sure your notes are out, page numbers are at the bottom of the screen. Let's go ahead and begin. Okay, we're going to do something called an A-C-B tree. We want to know what two numbers. They have to have two requirements. Multiply to A times C and add to B. So what two numbers multiply to A times C and add to B? So I'm going to go ahead and identify A, B, and C. Here's A, B, and C. So if I did A times C is 39. So we're looking at what two numbers multiply to 39, but they add to our B of negative 16. There's a couple ways to think of this. 39 is 3 times 39. 3 and 13. I see that 3 and 13 get me to 16, but not the negative, so I'm going to make both of them negative. The hardest part is probably finding what two numbers multiply to your A times C and add to your B. So once we do that, I'm going to go ahead and rewrite my negative 16x. I know that negative 16 is the same as 13x minus 3x. And those numbers came from that. Now this is four terms, so I can use my factor by grouping idea. I'm going to group these two and group these two. I can pull an x out, so I end up with an x minus 13. I can pull out a negative 3, x minus 13. I get my matching and my leftovers that we call them. X minus 3, x minus 13. So I'll get us started on the second one. So the hardest part is finding the two terms that you're going to go ahead and rewrite the middle term with. So here's our A times B times C. I want to know what two numbers multiply to A times C. So what two numbers multiply to 12, but add to my B of negative 7. So I'm going to have my 12. I have 1, 12, 2, 6, 3, and 4. I can make both of these negative, and then they add to negative 7. I'm going to rewrite negative 7 becomes negative 3z minus 4z. Now I have four terms, and I can do the grouping idea that I've been doing. So I can pull out a z. I get z minus 3. Pull out a negative 4. Z minus 3. I have two matching, and I have my leftovers. And this is what I end up with. Okay, so these are examples where my A is not 1, So let's go ahead and do a times b times a, b, and c. So a times c is negative, well actually, first things first, I can factor out a greatest common factor. So I can factor out a 5. And then I have a different a, b, and c. So a times c is negative 10. Let's think what two numbers multiply to negative 10, but add to my b of negative 8. So if I think of my factors of 10, I have 1 and 10, 2 and 5. None of these add to 8. Oop, I did something. None of these add to 8. So because they don't add to 8, or negative 8, so this is not factorable. This over here, they have a greatest common factor of a 3. I can identify my a, my b, my c. Multiplies to a times c is negative 30. But adds to my b of negative 13. If I think of my negative 30, I have 1 and 30. 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. So I want one of these to be, I need this to multiply to negative 30. So I mean, one needs to be positive, one needs to be negative, and it needs to add to negative 13. So I'm going to do 2 plus a negative 15. Once I have those, I'm going to rewrite (13) as negative 15b plus 2b minus 30. Uh-oh. Now I can do my leftovers, or I can group both of them. I can pull out a v from that, so my 3 is still on the outside. I pulled out a v, and I'm left with a v minus 15. Pull out a 2, v minus 15. I have my matching, and I have my leftover. And that is what I end up with. Yay. Okay, I have a trinomial, so I'm still doing the same idea of an ACB tree. Here's A, here's B, here's C. A times C is 6, so what two numbers multiply to 6, but add to my B of negative 7? So I think of 6 is 1 and 6, 2 and 3, but I need them to add to negative 7, so I'm going to make both of them negative. Negative 1 minus 6 equals negative 7, but multiplies to 6. So if I were to rewrite this, I'd have 2y squared and then I can group them and pull out a y. I can pull out a negative 3. I end up with my matching. And my leftovers. Yay. Go team, go. Okay, you guys are gonna go ahead and try this one on your own. So here's your A, B, and C. Let's go ahead and try this one on your own. Pause your screen and try it on your own. So here's my A times C is 40. But multiply or add to my B of negative 13. So look at my factors of 40, 140, 220, 410, 5, and 8. Okay, if I make both of these negative, they'll add to negative 13. So I'm going to rewrite that 13 as 8x squared minus 5x minus 8x. And then I can do the grouping. I can pull out an x from there. And pull out a negative 1 from there in order to make these matching. So I have my matching and my leftovers. And that should be the answer you guys got. We only got 2 more. We're doing great. Okay, I'm going to see if I can factor anything out. If there's a greatest common factor, I do not see one. So I'm going to do A times B is negative 280 multiplied, oh, not A times B. Sorry, I mean A times C multiplied to my B of 27. So let's think of 280. We have, yeah, we may have a lot here. 1 and 280, 2 and 140, 4 and 70, 5 and, why am I blanking on this? 5 and 56. 6 does not go into it. 8 goes into it. So I noticed that this needs to be negative, so one of these needs to be negative. If I make that one negative, I get it to add to 27. So I need a negative 8 and a 35 is how I'm going to rewrite that 27. So I'm saying that 8z plus 35z is the same as just that 27z. Factor by grouping, I can pull out a 4z, end up with a 5z minus 2. I can pull out a 7, 5z minus 2, have my matching, and I have my leftovers. That should say 4z. So I pulled out a 4z plus 7 is my leftovers. Ooh. So that would be my answer there. Okay, this is the last one. I want you guys to try this one on your own. We have A, B, and C. So go ahead and pause and try this on your own. a times c is positive 30, but adds to our b of 13. So I'm thinking of my factors of 30, 130, 215, 3, and 10. Okay, 3 and 10. So I'm rewriting I'm going to pull out a negative 1w from that. So I get 5w plus 5w minus 3. I'm going to pull out a 2 from that. I end up with my matching and my leftovers. So I'll pull out my matching. Here's my leftovers. I'm going to pull out a negative 1 from that because it's weird to have the negative coefficient. So I'm going to put a negative 1 from like the plus w minus 2. So the negative leading coefficients are a little weird. You're going to want to pull out a negative at the end. Okay, back to this factoring chart that we've talked about. You guys did this part last class of it. Today we're going to do the 3 terms because we just did that. So go ahead and get out that so we can finish that. When we have 3 terms, we do the ACB tree. So find 2 numbers that multiply to a times c, sorry. Add to b. And then we rewrite as 4 terms. And then we did grouping. So here's our A, B, C. So which numbers multiply to 42? Negative 42. But add to my B of negative 1. 142, 2, 21, 3. And 14. Six and 7. So I can make my 7 negative. Like it doesn't matter, I just need to make one of them negative to get it to be negative 42. So I'd have positive 6 minus 7. So I have x squared plus 6x minus 7x minus 42. Group them, I can pull out an x, end up with an x plus 6. Pull out a negative 7, end up with an x plus 6. X plus 6, x minus 7. This last one, the last part of the video notes. Here's A, B, C. Actually, I can pull out a 3 first. I just saw that. So that's 10x squared minus 9x plus 2. So there's my A, B, C. A times C has been 20. Which numbers multiply to 20 but add to my B of -9? 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 5 and 4. I can make the 5 and 4 both negative. Then I can group. And then we're getting real tight on space here. I end up with 5x minus 2 to x minus 1. So if you wanted to add that to your chart, that would be helpful. Okay, that's all for this skill. Bye guys, see you later.